He owns and operates the Pack-A-Day podcast that airs 365 days a year with over 12 million views on YouTube. A new adventure begins. It's time for the Pack-A-Day radio show with Andy Herman on 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook and on the free Odyssey app.
You know, the disappointing thing was the place that he was inside the 10 in practice, he's done a really good job with it. He's helped our young guys about making a fake away from the catch or being in position to block, you know, or letting it go into the end zone. So I'm hoping he was just trying to make too big of a play too early. But really the best decision would have been just make the play that's there. Make the fair catch on one or let it go and stay away from the one on the ground. So I'm expecting him to respond the right way and come back and have a good week.
Good morning. Hello, Packers Nation. Welcome into the Pack-A-Day radio show. My name is Andy Herman. We are live from the 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan studios and powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. That was Rich Bisaccia on McCole Hardman, one of the players that certainly did not help himself last week in the first preseason game. We're going to be going over some of the best and worst of preseason week one, who helped themselves, who hurt themselves. Plus, we've got joint practice coming up today. Packers Colts will be looking at what we're looking forward to in that game as well to help us do, or in that practice, I should say as well. To help us do that, Mark Oldacres, Packers Wire, Cheesehead TV. Looking forward to chatting with him at 8:20 a.m. today. As always, you are more than welcome to join the show. Nicolay Lawfan talking text line 414-677-1250. Again, 414-677-1250. You can also hit us up on YouTube with any questions or comments as well. And we'll be happy to get to those throughout the course of today's show. Tom, you have to ask right away. George Webb, you got free burgers. Brewers got the winning streak, 12 in a row. They're off today. Life is good in Milwaukee.
Life is great in Milwaukee right now. And at noon today, we find out when that date will be for the free burgers. So do not go and buy free burgers or try to get free burgers today, because it will be in the future. But, I mean, Andy, now, like, what would be a good fair win streak for a giveaway if the Packers were sponsored by something? Like, is it 12? Is it 16, 17? Like, do you have to go undefeated in order for that? Like, and what would they give? Like, Mars Cheese Castle or something has to do something if they're able to win like 12 games in a row. Yeah,
Culver or something like that.
Yeah,
Or Wendy's, Wendy's would be a good one. Like if there was something like that, I feel like it has to be at least probably like, I mean, a 10 game feels probably about right. A 10 game win streak.
Yeah.
That would probably be something in the same vein.
Feels like they did that a lot over the last decade, and that might scare some people off.
Yeah, you're probably right. I mean, again, it depends. Like, have they already made up the free burgers and the amount of advertising they've got for like these win streaks in Milwaukee? Like, I don't know. I'm no economist. I'm no math major. I'm not a lot of things. I can kind of cover the Packers a little bit, and then my breadth of knowledge kind of runs out quickly after that. So I don't know if that would be like a good, sound investment for a franchise or not. But like, if Pack-A-Day were to give out something, I'd be like, yeah, if they get like a 10 game win streak, I think there could be some sort of reward for fans or something like that.
Well, I think it would lock a lot of people in because everyone was locked in during this 12 game stretch right here. It was must-watch TV yesterday, and I mean, the crowds have just been awesome. Another 40,000 yesterday. And if they had more seats, I think they'd get more people going right now because Milwaukee seems to be jumping for the Brewers right now.
Yeah, looking at some tickets for the family coming up on a Friday night here, so hopefully going to get out there with the family soon. Also, like the Timber Rattlers hot ticket in town too with Madej and the entire now their first round pick's going to be there soon. Yeah,
Fisher coming up.
Yeah, this is going to be fun too. So next couple Fridays, I think it might be one with the Timber Rattlers, one with the Brewers, and it's also Baseball America. Not to get too far off track here, but Baseball America, top minor system, top farm system, Milwaukee Brewers. So like this, like pinch me. This cannot be real. Like the Milwaukee Brewers are by far and away just running away with first place in baseball and have the best farm system. What is life right now, Tommy?
I mean, no bias. I said this like 2 weeks ago, maybe 2 months ago, also on the leadoff show as we go through our Building a Winner feature, presented by Ironworkers Local 8, every single show. So I knew how great this minor league system was, and maybe just a little bit more validating, but Milwaukee right now, baseball town.
As well, it should be. Wisconsin right now, it's taking over Wisconsin too.
Yeah.
Again, it's the Packers still, Wisconsin's, favorite child, but the Brewers should be the talk of pretty much everything right now, except this, because we're the Pack a Day radio show and we're going to talk a lot of Green Bay Packers starting right now. Tommy had the opportunity to go through, and because I'm a just complete degenerate, and grade every single player on every single play, at least on offense and defense. My level of degeneracy cuts off on special teams. I'm not going out and grading every player on every play on preseason special teams. I'm a human, Tommy, and nobody should be subjected
Won't tell
to that
Mason,
whatsoever.
That's cool. Yeah, I got it.
I have to tell Mason this. I told the story yesterday. I once cheered against him making a field goal.
Oh,
that is a true story.
I've told him multiple times how much I've screamed at him, like, over my lifetime. Just
No,
never. Like,
not because he missed a field goal. I was adamantly hoping he was going to miss a field goal.
oh, okay. Explain real quick.
All right. So maybe this would be a better convo with Mason, but I'll give you the gist of it anyway. Packers Cardinals, the final game of the Mike McCarthy era. Josh Rosen snow game, and that was the first time and my only time that I've ever actively rooted at any point for the Packers to lose. Now, I went into that game not hoping that. They had still some playoff hopes. They're going against a really bad Arizona Cardinals team, and Josh Rosen's at quarterback. It's in Green Bay. I'm sitting in the stands. It's cold. It's a snow game. This is supposed to be one of those games that Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers team against a crappy Arizona team from the South just dominates. And it was a must win for them as well to kind of make any sort of playoff push at the end of the year. And they just look like garbage. I mean, the hottest of garbage.
I remember
throughout the entirety of that game. Josh Rosen and company, take it to Green Bay in Lambeau Field. And Mason's got a field goal, I think at the end to tie, if I remember correctly. It may have been to win, but I think it was to tie and then go into overtime. And it was so evident and clear in that game in particular. It was just kind of like the bow on the present, the cherry on the sundae, whatever you want to call it. It was so obviously clear that team needed something new. And the worst thing that could happen is almost that they make some sort of, run the table sort of run. And that was my hope in that moment as Mason was getting ready for that field goal. And that was my fear in that moment, I should say, as Mason was getting ready for that field goal, that Mason was going to make that. They were going to pull off some like overtime win. And then Aaron was going to just go nuclear like Aaron is apt to do from time to time and have a run the table moment. All of a sudden they're in the NFC Championship game and everything is quote unquote fine when really it was very clear it wasn't. And, Aaron, even, maybe Aaron was going to mask it a little bit, but it was very clearly not fine. And he's lining up for that field goal at the end. It's in my end zone as I'm watching it. And that was the first one I'm like, he needs to miss this because they need to have a wake-up call and miss this playoffs and make a change at coach because and I was a huge Mike guy for years and years and years. Like I thought he did a phenomenal job, obviously won a Super Bowl. That was the only time that I've ever been like, yeah, he needs to miss this one. And thankfully, Mason, that's the absolute best miss of your career. And obviously, like, I know the connotation of, like, I'm sure, it was a tough day for everyone with Mike getting let go and whatever. I'm not trying to make light of the entire situation, but Mike got fired that day. And then the rest obviously was history. And they went on to hire Matt after that and whatnot. So that was the only time in my life that I cheered against Green Bay and was actively hoping in that case that Mason would miss a field goal so that they would probably have to make a change. I did not think they were going to make a change that night, but here we were. They made a change that night.
Yeah, Andy, and right now, there is some fear, it sounds like, that the special teams is heading in the wrong direction, as it has been the last couple of years. I can hint at from the Mecole Hardman sound that you have me playing at the beginning of this hour.
Yeah, I think it was more of a Mecole Hardman thing. He obviously had a bad day. He had the drop, and then he had the two punt plays, which we'll talk about. To me, McManus looks incredible at practice the other day. He went 6 for 6 again, including 3 for 3 on kicks over 50 yards. He looks fantastic. Whelan looks fantastic. He had his first, I think, bad punt of the entirety of camp so far the other day, where he was trying to do like a coffin corner punt and just kind of shanked it a little bit. But outside of that, he's been phenomenal. Orzik looks just like, again, as much as we're going to talk about long snappers, he looks locked in and looks like he is hitting everything the way that he wants to, both with Whelan and with the kick unit. So that aspect of it looks good. I think they added some really fun pieces, like Isaiah Simmons, I think is going to be a potential demon. Like, you have a linebacker playing gunner, and I know they've experimented with this a little bit with Edgerrin Cooper in the past as well, but they've got a linebacker able to play gunner. That's how freaky of a dude that is at linebacker, that he can go and do some of that stuff. So I'm actually semi-hopeful on the special teams, like famous last words. I'm sure it's still going to end up in disaster in somehow or some way. They got to figure out kick returner, which I still have a feeling is probably just going to be Keyshawn once the season starts. Punt returner is where I'm much more like, I have no idea what the heck they're going to do at that spot. And that's where we're getting to kind of the McCole Hardman conversation, because he was definitely one of the players that really hurt himself in this past game. The drop on offense definitely didn't help. But then as we're looking at punt returner as well, like, here's I'm willing to give him some accident forgiveness, and then I'm willing to, like, also admit like, obviously this was really, really bad. The two mistakes that he made were, he fielded a punt inside of his 5-yard line or whatever, which is, you just don't do it. Mm-hmm. And then, like, there was a bouncing ball, probably better to just kind of let that thing go, or definitely make sure that you're catching it on the fly, but if not, just letting that thing bounce and not allowing for a potential turnover. This is preseason. And McCole Hardman, his avenue to making this team is as a returner. If he doesn't make something flashy happen in preseason as a returner, that dude's probably gone anyway. So I have no issue. And also, like, if I'm the coach, and I don't know, obviously the directive was not this because Bisaccia and LaFleur were upset about it. But if I'm the coach, I'm like, return no matter what. If we get caught inside our own 5-yard line, awesome. That's going to be a great situation for us to practice. Or, like, obviously I don't want you to fumble, but, like, go make a freaking play. I want to see how our punt return unit does blocking things up, and I want to see what you can do as a returner. I don't care if you catch it at the -9-yard line. Go catch it and see what you can do, and see if you can ultimately make something happen. So I don't, if that was a regular season game, absolutely, just like nuclear bad decisions, right? Like, what are you possibly doing in a preseason game? My dude, go get that ball and see what you can do as a returner. That is your path to making the roster, and this game does not matter at all. So go make those plays. But if you're going to try that, if you are going to be like, yep, here's my chance, I'm going to go make this team right now, getting down inside your own 5-yard line and then muffing a punt is about one of the worst things that you could possibly do. So I love the chutzpah to make that, to take that chance. I love that, but you got to pay it off, and he did the exact opposite of that.
Can I ask, Andy, do you think the Christian Watson injury, not because of the position where they are obviously both wide receivers, helps McCole Hardman out, but is it just the ability to take the top off of defense, right? And the speed that can get downfield. He's not a go up and get it type guy, obviously, but he can get behind a defense, right? And do you think that helps McCole Hardman at all in the roster configuration?
I don't think so, just because despite him having that speed, so for last year, for example, he had 12 receptions, and like as a deep ball threat, what would you kind of expect that yardage to be for him? You know, maybe averaging like 15 yards
around
reception, something like that,
17 to 20, right? Yeah.
He had 90 yards on those 12 receptions, a 7.5 yards per reception. The year before that, it was 8.4. The year before that, it was 6.0. The year before that, it was 8.3. It was even when he was like cooking a little bit more in like 20, when he had 59 receptions in 2021, it was only 11.7. So his longest reception by year, 17 yards last year, 37 the year before that, 6 the year before he had one catch for 6 yards, 37, 36. And then even again, when he was cooking in 2021 a little bit more, his long was only 53 and then 49 the year before that. He had one long of 83 as a rookie and averaged 20.7 yards per catch on 26 receptions as a rookie. And basically ever since then has not been a deep ball threat at all. So the fact that he has the speed, sure, yes, I think there's a couple things that you can do with that, no question about it. But he is not, in a pretty long career at this point in time, been any sort of consistent or reliable deep ball threat down the field. To me, there's two things. One, this wide receiver room is just completely obliterated at the moment. Mm-hmm. Watson's on the PUP list. Jaden Reed's in a walking boot. Romeo Dobbs left practice the other day. Savion Williams was, using the massage gun the other day at practice. Dontavian Wicks is out with a calf injury. 5 of your top 6 guys are dealing with something at the moment. You're down to Golden, Heath, and Hardman. We're to the point of like, do they need to transition cornerback Bo Melton back to receiver Bo Melton here just to kind of get an extra receiver in that room? They just claimed another wide receiver as well. So he's going to have some real opportunity here. And if the injuries pile up enough, he could maybe just make it as a wide receiver. But to me, his avenue to making this team is going to have to be at punt returner. Again, it doesn't hurt that he has the speed or anything like that, but he's definitely going to have to make it that way.
Yeah, and I didn't realize those numbers. I was looking at Watson even, and his lowest, which was his rookie year, he's hovering right around 15 yards of reception still. It's 14.9. It got up to 21.4 last year, too, which is crazy that he caught the ball 29 times last year for 620 yards. So obviously that was just his whole game, right, is to at least draw away defenders. And even I just think of that as a guy who's in the wide receiver room right now. I don't know who else can do that other than McCole Hardman because of the threat of his speed, at least. Because it's very apparent that even when Christian Watson wasn't necessarily putting up numbers, the team's offense plays better when he is on the field because of that ability.
Yeah, I think it's going to have to be a little bit by committee. Savion Williams certainly has that size and speed, but he's going to have to show that he can be that threat. And then
he hasn't been healthy at all. We haven't seen really anything out of him yet.
Correct. And then Matthew Golden is the other one, too, that's got some of that speed and ability to get down the field. So we're going to have to kind of see how that ultimately pieces together, and they're going to have that. Also, good news that it sounds like Watson might be ready, to come off of PUP immediately after that initial 4 games per Brian Gutekunst the other day. So you're just trying to navigate maybe that first month of the season until you have your dedicated deep threat back a little bit. But overall, yeah, I don't think that Hardman moves the needle one way or the other that way. And that's why, again, those 2 punt returns were going to be so massive for him. And unfortunately, it did not go great. You're listening to the Pack-A-Day Radio Show live from the 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Tommy, I went through and graded everyone. I'll give you my top 5, bottom 5 on both offense and defense. Let me know if anything stands out to you. We'll do offense first.
Okay.
My top 5 on offense was Amar Johnson, Jordan Morgan, Sean Ryan, John Fitzpatrick, and then I had like a billion guys at tied for number 5 with a pretty low grade overall, just slight positive overall. But I put Matthew Golden in that spot. So Amar Johnson, Jordan Morgan, Sean Ryan, John Fitzpatrick, and Matthew Golden. Then my bottom 5, Malik Heath, McCole Hardman, Jacob Monk, Messiah Swinson, and Zach Tom. So those are my best and worst on offense. Anyone stand out to you from either of those groups?
No, I guess Sean Ryan a little bit. I don't know if I necessarily, that was like the one, I don't know how great the offensive line played necessarily. It's hard to judge also in a preseason game, I guess, just because there's always rotating and there's new guys all over. And should they have blocked longer? Should this guy have been here at this point, right? We never really seem to know. But that was the name that jumped out to me as far as standing out on the positive side. And then on the bad side, again, I was waiting to hear Jacob Monk's name too, because it seemed like he was he number 1? I can't remember who you had at number 1 on the
Malik Heath and McCole Hardman were 1 and 2, and then Monk at 3. Interestingly enough, for PFF, Jacob Monk did not make their bottom 5. Their bottom 5 was Tyler Cooper, McCole Hardman, Romeo Dobbs, Donovan Jennings, and Malik Heath. So we had Hardman and Heath both in our bottom 5, but they did not have Monk. The interesting the thing that I will say about Monk's 3 or 4 really bad plays were really bad plays, right? You saw them, you heard them, etc. If anyone just from after the game, myself included, would have been asked who had the worst game, maybe McCole Hardman's in that conversation, but Jacob Monk right there, right? I will say that in the plays in between the brutal mistakes, he actually looked good. There were moments that he actually played very well, held up at both a pass protector and as a run blocker. So that was actually nice to see. But yeah, it's still a very tough day overall for Jacob Monk. And then, from a top 5 standpoint, Sean Ryan, what I will say is center, you could tell there was a little bit more of an issue on the sacks was definitely, at fault there. And then outside of that, though, when he was at right guard, he looked really, really good. And that's clearly where he's going to be for the vast majority of the season. So I thought that was encouraging from Sean Ryan. But Jordan Morgan, to me, and again, PFF had Jordan Morgan as their 3rd highest graded player. Jordan Morgan, to me, was really the standout on offense that you can kind of sink your teeth into a little bit more, where that he looked like a left tackle in that game. It's preseason. You're going against some backups. There's no question about it. But the footwork, the hands, much better. Or the footwork was already good, kind of coming in. But the hands look much better and look much better than his performance in Family Night, which you like to see that improvement as well. All right, defensively, top 5 and bottom 5 on defense. Top 5, Kingsley Nigbare, Kalen King, Tyron Hopper, Carl Brooks, and Baron Sorrell. And then bottom 5 were Jamon Johnson, Isaiah Dunn, Nasir Stackhouse, Desalin Alexander, and Tyron Herring. Just really quick on the plus side, the top 3, Kingsley Nigbare, Tyron Hopper, and Kalen King, both PFF and I were in lockstep with. We both had him in our top three. Enigbari was the top guy for both of us. They had King second, Hopper third. I had Hopper second, King third. Then we kind of disagreed a little bit from there. But overall, those were clearly, in my opinion and in PFF's opinion, the top three in this particular game. I thought Enigbari was dominant. I mean, he was phenomenal in this game. I don't think we talked about it enough. We were all kind of enamored by Baron Sorrell and some of the other rookies along the defensive line. Enigbari was wrecking stuff up front. Again, caveat it, second round or second, unit for a majority of it. And second unit offensive lines are usually very, very bad. But what he was asked to do, he went out and dominated. And then Kalen King, couple pass breakups, including one in the end zone at the end of the game there. Tyron Hopper was pretty much everywhere. So definitely three defenders that really helped themselves in that game.
Did you not say Isaiah Simmons in the bottom five either?
I did not. So PFF definitely did. They had him as their second lowest graded player. Okay. And it's very worthy of that. And I will absolutely agree with that. He was right outside of it. He was like my sixth lowest graded player. There were a few plays from Simmons that I actually thought that were a little bit better in between the nightmarishness. So I have no issue with him being in the bottom five by PFF whatsoever. And you can make a strong argument that he deserves to be in there. I had just a few other players that were a little bit worse. But it was a rough day for Isaiah Simmons for sure.
Yeah, that was just the name that stood out to me. There was a lot going around on the all 22 of Isaiah Simmons, just wrong place and wrong time on a lot of plays, it felt like.
Yeah, some things that definitely need to get cleaned up. His linebacker coach said, he'd be the first to admit that it was not his best day. That's sort of the MO with Isaiah Simmons is you see all the flashes in practice. He's looked really good. And when you see him on the field on defense, it's like, it's just a net negative. It has been in every one of his stops so far. So he's got to find a way to be impactful, not making those mistakes, and being able to use all of that insane ability that he has to his advantage. So we'll see if ultimately we can get that, or he can get that cleaned up, and we can see Isaiah Simmons be a little bit more impactful. Some real positive takeaways, though, and I know, again, it's a 30-10 loss, and nobody wants to hear about positives in a 20-point loss, I guess. But if you're like handpicking some young players and just players in general that in that preseason game that you wanted to see play well, or at least like show some real flash and upside, this is a list of players from that game that I thought met that. Jordan Morgan, Anthony Belton, Kingsley Enigbari, Tyron Hopper, Kalen King, Baron Sorrell, Carl Brooks, Colby Wooden, Amar Johnson, Sean Ryan, and Matthew Golden. Like all of them either played well or, again, in like the case of like an Anthony Belton, showed some really, really fun flashes. Like those would have been like a huge chunk of the players I would have handpicked to be like, I hope these players play well in this preseason game. And they did. Some players who really hurt themselves in this game: McCole Hardman, Malik Heath, Jacob Monk, and Isaiah Simmons. So that was my list of four who definitely need to bounce back and hopefully have a better week starting this week and starting today with those joint practices. All right, Tommy, we've got a lot more to get to throughout the course of today's show. I should mention as well, Football Talk on the Fan is presented by Paramount Plus. You cannot count on much these days, but you can count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus. Watch your local NFL game live every Sunday on CBS and Paramount Plus all season long. Visit ParamountPlus.com/NFL to get started today. We are at 68 and sunny in Milwaukee currently, high of 78, low of 66. We're going to be right back with Mark Oldacres. This is the Pack-A-Day Radio Show, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Welcome back to the Pack a Day Radio Show, live from the 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan Studios, and powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Reminder that the Mason Crosby Show is coming up next from 9 to 11 right here on The Fan with, of course, Mitch Thunder Nellis. Excited for that today. As we get ready for Packers joint practice, there's a few things that I'm going to be looking for as we get into it and hoping to get updates on today. I did think about going down to Indianapolis, but that drive is a little bit brutal to go there and back just for one practice. But it'll be fun to get all the updates from the beat guys throughout the course of today. I'm going to feel like everyone else not being actually able to be there and just having to read everyone else's tweets. So no, I'm excited to see what we get out of it. But what I am looking for in this particular practice are a couple things. Number one is, can we please get some like actually good injury juju going in Green Bay's direction? Meaning, like, is Luke Musgrave and LVN and Romeo Dobbs and some of those players that maybe dropped out of practice, Savion Williams, the other day, can some of those players, maybe all of them, actually just be out there and practicing and be like, oh, great, actually none of those were any issue whatsoever? Can we get a couple guys that have not been practicing, maybe back at practice and out there going up against Indianapolis? Can we get, no actual injuries throughout the course of today's practice? That would be nice to have. So that would be something that I'm looking for. And then just some of the vibes. I'm not a huge vibe guy. I've had great vibes before. Giants NFC Championship game where Favre's throwing a pick to Corey Webster at the end. I had great vibes going into that game. Didn't do a whole heck of a lot. I've had terrible vibes in other games, and they end up winning with ease. That Falcons NFC Championship with Tremont with the pick six, I was so nervous going into that game. And that was when. So vibes don't mean a whole heck of a lot, but it would be nice if the injury sort of situation turned a little bit. And then also if we could just start seeing some really impressive play, and hopefully they can go out and we get more positive updates from Green Bay against Indianapolis in practice today rather than the other way around. All right, joining us now on the Fan Guest Hotline, powered by Gruber Law, is the one and only Mark Oldacres. You can find him on social media at Mark Oldacres, on Cheesehead TV, Packers Wire, and pretty much anywhere else on the internet that you'd like to find him. Mark, it is great to be back chatting with you. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm very good. It's nice to have some kind of football-ish. To talk about. I was really kind of, I think it was almost like a kindness of the Packers to do away with any kind of like idea that the preseason can be good. Like, it was just right off the bat. No, it was a reminder. This is not really real football, not yet. So we still got to work a little bit till we get to that point. But no, it's good to have some real stuff to watch at least.
Preseason is for trying desperately to stay healthy and try to get some player evaluations and not a whole heck of a lot else. But speaking of staying healthy, unfortunately, Green Bay has not exactly had the easiest time of doing that, including to QB1 Jordan Love out with the thumb injury. Sounds like has the potential at least to be back next week. Is not going to play in that final preseason game or certainly do anything this week. Your thoughts on Jordan's injury when you first heard that it happened and how it could potentially affect this team, if at all?
Yeah, I think when I kind of saw the initial thing that he was at practice and had his left thumb taped, it was very much zero alarm, to be honest. I was kind of like, well, that doesn't really matter as long as it's, just taped up. Obviously, you don't know the severity of it at that point, but he's practicing. Obviously, when you hear surgery, not good, but then you see kind of the explanation of what it is and that he's only going to be out, around a week or could even only miss a few practices if all goes well. So obviously they've dodged a bullet, there's no doubt about that. I think there's been a bit of a theme of that with the injury so far that they've had this summer. Obviously the fact that he's going to miss, some of the joint practices, he's probably not going to play in the preseason at all. Maybe he'll play in the final week, but whether they want to risk that at this point, I'm not sure. There's an element of could he start the season a little bit rustier than if he was able to play in those games? So that's kind of the only minor concern. But in terms of the actual health and the most important thing is that he's going to be able to be on the field when the football counts. It's good news overall.
Yeah, I think so too. I joked about, like, if you had to somehow piece together the words Jordan Love, ligament and surgery, torn ligament and surgery, this is about the best possible case scenario that you could possibly have. Even if you added thumb to that, you had a 50-50 chance of it being an absolute nightmare. And thankfully, we got the right side of 50-50. So, yeah, this is hopefully much ado about nothing in the end, and he can be back next week practicing, looking good to go. He misses maybe 3-4 practices in a preseason game because of it, and that's it. And if he's back next week, he still has about 2.5 weeks to get ready for the season. It's not like he's going to forget everything that he's done already in training camp, mini camp, and OTAs so far. So no real concern. My one other concern would be potentially if it affects him under center at all. If they have to go more, shotgun or pistol to begin with, because it's maybe, to protect the thumb to begin with. That would be the only other thing that I'd be kind of keeping an eye on. But if that's not an issue at all, especially if it's starting week 1, then no real concern on my end. But anytime you hear, again, surgery and Jordan Love, it's not ideal, but about the best case scenario you could possibly have given the circumstances. Of course, Mark, we do have joint practices sans Jordan Love today. It'll be the Colts and the Packers practicing together in Indianapolis. I talked about it would be nice just to get some positives going this way, hopefully from an injury standpoint, and hopefully they can take it to Indianapolis a little bit and start getting some positive updates there. But what are you ultimately looking for in today's joint practices as we start getting those tweets in about, 5 hours-ish?
Yeah, I mean, it's always interesting when you have these now, because obviously, we can pay attention to, the practice tweets, which obviously guys like yourself are thankfully putting out there from camp, and how this player's doing against this player, and kind of, how it's going for various players throughout camp. But, they are playing against themselves. They know each other very well. So there isn't always an element of kind of when you can then going to play against a different opponent in, this is as close to real football as they're really going to play, because it's about the only time now with the preseason being so vanilla that the coaches are going to kind of let it rip a little bit. So you obviously want to see them, fare well against the Colts this week and against the Seahawks next week in these joint practices. Like you said, I think health is the first thing everybody's looking at. What can we get some updates on how long? Where's Wicks at? How long is he going to be out for? Dobbs with the back injury sounds like it wasn't too bad, but they're getting pretty thin at receiver. So that's kind of the first and foremost stuff is just how are they doing on the health front. I think one thing I'm looking forward to kind of seeing on the actual football side of things, and I think it sounds like we got a glimpse of this a little bit when Malik Willis was of course QB1 with Love out at that practice the other day. How does he look when he's back with the first team offense? Because I think that does make a big difference. I don't think he's probably had the best camp. And again, it's hard to say that. Who knows what he's working on and what he's trying, things like that. But when you're working with the second team rather than the first team, there's lesser kind of talent around you. So I guess I just want to see really how can the first team offense function, especially if they are down a couple more receivers as well, against another NFL first team defense. How does Willis do in that situation? Obviously, he did pretty well against the Colts last year, but can he move the offense? And does he look more like, okay, his hands are more firmly on the reins now than rather than just kind of trying stuff and he's with the second team against the second team defense? Is he kind of a bit more locked in?
That's going to be, I think, an interesting thing is just how Malik, goes against this Colts team. And they haven't used the Malik Willis offense in practice the other day. It was him running the actual offense. And I thought he did a really nice job with it. So if he can do that against Indy today, and then in that preseason game, I think that'll be a solid step for him. If all those receivers are out and it's Malik Willis and Golden and Hardman and Heath, good luck. That might be a little bit of a heavy lift out there, but hopefully he's capable of doing it. We get some, again, good updates out there at training camp in Indianapolis today. We're being joined by Mark Oldacres. Easy for me to say, Mark. You can find him on social media at Mark Oldacres, and of course Cheesehead TV and PackersWire.com. We have a big super fan in our YouTube chat. It looks like we have at Mitch Nellis tweeting at us in YouTube, or at least messaging us in YouTube. What if Tyron Hopper is good, is his question. So, Mark, I'll let you take this one. What if Tyron Hopper actually comes out and plays really well this season?
Well, it'd be a big boost. I think that's kind of it's funny because Tyron Hopper being good kind of felt like, and I'm guilty of this as well, it's kind of felt like a foregone conclusion that that's not the case up until this summer, which is really harsh. Obviously, he was a surprising third round pick, and I don't think many people would have taken him there. And then last summer, obviously, he didn't really do much, and then kind of in the regular season didn't really contribute much either, particularly on defense. So he obviously does seem to have taken a big jump. Isaiah McDuffie is the third linebacker. He's kind of like, he's a safe pair of hands, but there's not kind of any playmaking element there. Hopper, you see kind of the flashes of that more thumping style that he plays with. He just comes downhill, and you see what the Packers saw in him. So if he can, at some point in the season, like legitimately challenge McDuffie and get some looks in base defense alongside Cooper and Walker, it could just add another real strong element, especially when they're coming downhill in the run game and coverage. I think Hopper, that might always be maybe a little bit more of a challenge for him. But it's been really pleasing to see that he's taken legitimate strides, because he was kind of, I think, a bit unfairly by pretty much everybody decided that he wasn't going to work out. And it's nice to see some positives.
Yeah, I thought he had was having a much better training camp and had a nice preseason game than anything we really saw this past year. So taking steps in the right direction. And I do wonder if he has the ability to kind of get into that number 3 linebacker conversation a little bit more. Right now, it has been primarily McDuffie and even Simmons ahead of him so far, but he's looked good, and hopefully he can get in that conversation sooner rather than later. As you look back at this preseason game 1 and Packers Jets, I know it's tough to, kind of get some takeaways from a preseason game, but there's always some good, there's always some bad. I walked through some of my highlights and lowlights from that game. What stood out to you as something that you can actually have as a tangible takeaway from that game?
Yeah, I think the biggest one was Jordan Morgan by far, for me. Just in terms of, I think what I'm looking for in these games is, obviously you're looking to see kind of who's going to make the team, who are the guys that are showing up and impressing in a way that they're going to make the team. But is there anything you can glean from what you're watching that is actually going to impact how well the Packers do in 2025? Because a lot of the back end of the roster guys aren't really going to contribute to that in a major way. Often in preseason, there's not a lot of that to draw from. But Morgan, I thought, just looked so assured. And again, it is, it's a preseason game, but you look at just kind of the progress from family night where he did struggle at times, and he just looked so confident. His footwork was so clean. He looked, I think, more stout than he had in the past, in terms of kind of dealing with power, which is something that he needed to work on. And I just think with him, for all the talk that kind of like a lot of circles that he's going to be a guard, and this is, I talked about this recently. I've just given up on the debate on which offensive lineman is going to play where, because there's no point. Like, there is no point trying to figure it out, because first of all, they're probably going to have a good offensive line anyway, so you don't really have to worry. And then second of all, they're just going to move guys around all the time. Zach Tom could be playing center in 2 years' time, for all I know, like, honestly, at this point. Yep. So, but Morgan, I think, was definitely the biggest takeaway for me. Just looked comfortable at left tackle, and that would be obviously a huge development for the long term if he can be an NFL left tackle and a good one.
I'm with you on all of it. It does not matter what we think of where offensive linemen should play. They're all going to play pretty much everywhere anyway. That's turned out pretty well for them, and I was very excited about how Jordan Morgan looked in that game. I joke, we've heard forever that, like, you can't just take a player and move them from one offensive line position to the other. Like, it's not like Madden, and the Packers are like, actually, it kind of is. We're just going to take anyone that we want at any given moment and move them to a different offensive line spot, and it's going to be totally fine. It's like, all right, I guess you can do that. So yeah, they're very unique in their offensive line philosophies, with switching guys around and subbing guys in mid-game and having rotations, and they're just like, whatever, we're down for whatever on the offensive line. So yeah, trying to predict what's going to come next, like you said, Zach Tom could be a center. They could be playing 7 offensive line. Who knows at this point? That's just how they're operating at the moment. We're being joined by Mark Oldacres. You can find him on Cheesehead TV, at PackersWire.com, and on social media at Mark Oldacres. All right, a couple other quick ones before we get you out of here. There's some really fun and exciting young players on this offense in particular. Matthew Golden, Marshawn Lloyd, Savion Williams, even Luke Musgrave. I would kind of put it, like, what I would kind of say is like our unique and exciting, but still sort of unknown type players. So I'm going to put those 4 players in that category. Who are you kind of most excited about to watch throughout the course of this season, preseason and regular season, and hoping that, like, really kind of explodes off the page and catches your? I mean, I get the easy one is Matthew Golden. He's the first round pick, but, kind of maybe I'll have you rank them from 1 to 4. Musgrave, Lloyd, Savion Williams, and Matthew Golden.
I'll put Golden at 1 as kind of the obvious one.
Fair.
And then Number two, I would go Savion because I was a big, having watched his tape after they drafted him, a much bigger fan
So fun.
of the short time out of tape I watched before they drafted him. And it's been good to see that he's kind of been, he kind of started behind the eight ball a little bit with some injuries and stuff, but it's good to see at practice, at least he's been working in with the ones at times and making some plays. I'm just so fascinated to see what he could be. Then I'd probably put Lloyd third, just because it's more intrigue again because of kind of the stuff coming out of camp about how electric he looks at times, and he's just that kind of runner. He's the kind of runner who's going to reverse field and try and run it 50 yards back the wrong way, essentially, and he's capable of doing that. So can they work him in? What does that mean for Jacob? Stuff like that. And then I'd probably put Musgrave last just because I kind of feel like I know what Musgrave's going to be. He's going to be stretching the seam and adding that vertical element to the tight ends, but I don't think he's ever going to kind of surpass Kraft at this point. And I kind of question how big of a role he's going to have ultimately.
Yeah, I would put that in the same exact. I might switch up Lloyd and Savion, although I love Savion and I'm unrealistically excited about his potential long term. Like if you told me he was the best player from this draft class for Green Bay, wouldn't be stunned one bit. Like he has that type of talent. And Golden already looks incredible too. So just even saying that is something in and of itself. But yeah, it's a really interesting group of fun, unique players, and hopefully we can kind of see more of them here. Just a little bit more of substance out of them, and not just a flash here or there. All right, Mark, the big one. Before I get you out of here, I'm doing this for myself and for Mason Crosby and us two in particular. We've got Premier League starting tomorrow. My Liverpool defending their championship starting tomorrow on Friday, and then we get 4 straight days of soccer. It is back, or football for you. My apologies. What are you looking forward to? Who's your team? Is it you West Ham, or what's your team?
Aston Villa is my team. So
Aston Villa, that's right.
Same colours as West Ham. Aston Villa, yeah. I'm looking forward to it, but I actually work kind of in that realm, kind of in the broadcasting side. So this does mean that after a lot of time off, that means I'm now back to work. So that's kind of it's pros and cons, but no, I'm looking forward to the season. I think there's a lot of really exciting players that are coming to the league this year. Liverpool obviously have made a lot of changes, so I'm interested to see how they kind of cope with that. Obviously, you just win the league and then you change a lot of things around, so we'll see how that goes. From a Villa perspective, we've been a little bit quiet transfer wise. We've got some of this financial, tomfoolery that we have to do to get around all these regulations and stuff like that. So I think it's going to be an interesting year for us, but I know we're always kind of going to be up there with the manager that we've got and everything like that. So I think it's going to be a really, really interesting season this year.
Who wins the league? Who's your preseason prediction?
I'll go Arsenal this year. I think they'll finally do it.
I think that might seem right, but hopefully you're wrong, and hopefully it's Liverpool, to say the least. Mark, we may have just lost you there for a second, but either way, a huge thank you to Mark for joining us on the Fan Guest Hotline, powered by Gruber Law. One call, that's all. Make sure to find him on social media at Mark Oldacres. This is the Pack-A-Day Radio Show. We'll be right back with more Packers chat right after this.
Obviously, it's different for everybody, so I've kind of just tried to run my own race with it. But I mean, I talked to Stephon Diggs, about his recovery process. I trained down in Davie with the same people he was rehabbing with, and that went really well. So no, I kind of talked to him when I was first getting into the process, because obviously it was going really smooth for him. So I just kind of picked his brain a little bit. But I mean, aside from that, I've really just been running my own race.
Welcome back to the Pack a Day Radio Show. We are live right here in the Potawatomi Sportsbook Studios. A reminder that the Mason Crosby Show with Mitch Thunder and Ellis is coming up from 9 to 11. Also, a huge thank you to Mark Oldacres for joining us this past segment, talking some Packers and a little bit of Premier League as well. I quizzed Tommy on how many Premier League teams he knew in the break. I was pretty impressed. He did pretty good. I think he got at least half, which was definitely above my... I probably would have set the over-under at about 6.5. And you well over hit the bar, Tommy. Well done.
I played some FIFA back in the day, which it's not even called that anymore. So now, it's FC right now. That's what they call the game now. It's not even FIFA anymore.
I don't know.
Okay, I'll ask Mason. He'll know.
Mason will know for sure. But yeah, appreciate Mark Oldacres coming on. Follow him on social media at Mark Oldacres. Also, for our listeners, the Pack a Day Radio Show, also now a podcast. You can find us anytime on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your favorite pods. Catch the full episode, listen by individual hour, or jump straight to the highlights. Open up your favorite podcast app, search Pack a Day Radio Show, hit that follow button so you get every minute of the show your way and on your time. We heard from Christian Watson there. That was a little bit earlier in the offseason from WFRV. But one of the really key takeaways from this week, in the midst of, about 1 billion bad news updates on injuries and Jordan Love having surgery and players dropping out of practice like flies, we did get some really good news on Christian Watson from Brian Gutekunst. And there was a couple things that he said in there. First of all, that he is well ahead of schedule, which is, of course, exactly what you want to hear. The second thing that we heard with Watson is that he will be on the PUP list to start the season. That's the expectation, which is no surprise whatsoever. That was always well beyond the expectation. The question was going to be how long would it take? They said like they're already fighting. Like when you look at Christian Watson, it's like already can this dude just practice now? And they're just trying to really make sure that he goes through the steps and doesn't rush everything. So again, that's a good sign. And then the big comment that he made. Once that 4 weeks, so once you're on the PUP list to start the season, you are guaranteed to be out 4 weeks. And then after that 4 weeks, you can activate them off the PUP list. What you can do is have them practice for a few weeks before you have to activate them. So my guess would be that would be something that they would do with Watson. Also remember that week 5 is a bye week for Green Bay. So that kind of buys them almost a little bit of extra time with Watson as well. But he said after the 4 weeks are up on the PUP list that they're going to have to basically hold Christian Watson back, he thinks, to not play at that point in time. It really sounds like in that realm of, the 5th game, 6th game, somewhere in there, like we could, I'm not saying will, but could potentially see Christian Watson. When this injury initially happened, I mean, beginning of January for that injury, the very last game of the regular season. If you would have told me like he was out into December, I would have been like, yeah, that could easily be the case, especially with how cautious they are with some of these things. If all of a sudden he's back in early October, that is potentially huge for this team. Like getting him back, and even if it's week 6 or week 7, even week 8, anywhere in there would be a really big boost for this offense. And like right towards the middle of the season, it's almost like a really big trade deadline pickup. And to get him, as we talked about earlier, as that deep threat within the offense that can open up a lot of things underneath for everyone else, he could be a really big piece in addition at that point in time. But the fact that he is looking as good as he is, getting the rave reviews from coaches and Brian Gutekunst, the general manager, of where he's at, we knew Christian Watson is a freak of nature just in everything that he does athletically. But coming back, and I know there's been players that have done it quicker, like Adrian Peterson, whatever. Those are far outliers. He is still well ahead of schedule. And again, if he is back in early to mid-October, what a huge boost that would be for this offense. So actually some potential good news for Christian Watson coming out of this week, Tommy.
Yeah, and that's gonna be a headline too, right? When he is able to be back into this offense. And I think it would help out just everyone in the receiving core too with him, because those pressures of having to make the deep play and the big play for Green Bay's wide receiver, I don't know who I would have on the top of that list when Christian Watson is not a part of this team. And that's going to be an important part for Green Bay this year, because I do believe they're going to run the football a whole hell of a lot more than they planned on in years past. Christian Watson's the guy that really opens things up and spreads the field out. I don't know who I'd point to after that.
It's one of those things where if you go out and check the box score for Christian Watson, you do not get anywhere near the level of impact that he has on the field. Just taking players with him to open things up underneath is such a huge part of what he is able to do. There is a fear, like you talked about it. Some of those seasons are 20 plus yards per reception. And like that just gives the fear to other teams of having to play back on him. He is a really, really important piece. All right, Tommy, no leadoff show today, correct? Obviously, no Brewer game. So it's like, are you going to get rusty on your day here? Like, how are you going to make this work so that you're ready to go tomorrow?
Yeah, I might just go watch all 12 game highlight reels like at this today just to get my fix, something along those lines. But I am excited for tomorrow. Unfortunately, the bad news is you just got to wait for tomorrow. Now, they do have a stretch now here of though I think it's 16 games,
14 or yeah,
16 games in 15 days right now because they got the series coming up against the Reds here, and then it's that big 5-gamer in Chicago.
Bring it on!
Yeah.
Give me 30 games in 15 days. Like they'll figure out a way to navigate it. I'll take 2 a days for Milwaukee right now because they've got the depth and the talent and everything else. All right, let's quickly get to our Potawatomi Sportsbook final thought of the day.
You got to do some smart thinking.
It's time for Andy Herman's final thought of the day.
What are you thinking?
Powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook.
What the hell were you thinking?
You're listening to the Pack-A-Day radio show on 1250 AM and 105.7 FM, The Fan.
My final thought of the day is that I'm bad at my job. My Potawatomi Sportsbook final thought of the day was supposed to be the Christian Watson take. But, Tommy, what I've wanted to ask you, so I'm going to use this as my opportunity. Who is the Milwaukee Brewers' best player?
No, you did not, Andy, that's literally the first segment on the Mason Crosby
Okay,
show.
all right. I did not know that. I did not know that. So here's that's a teaser. I will give mine, and then
Okay.
I'll let you guys open with the Mason Crosby. That's really funny. My son asked me, like, we've obviously been watching a lot of the games, and he's like, "Who's the best Milwaukee Brewer?" And I'm like, I don't know. Like I have, like, obviously there's a lot of people in the conversation. There's a lot of like, and it obviously gets into the conversation of like, if you were starting the franchise with one of the like Milwaukee Brewers, which one would you choose? Are you taking contract and salary into consideration? I guess I'm just going to go Yelich right now with what he's doing offensively and with his history. But man, you could go in like if you wanted to make an argument for a few different pitchers, a few different position players, like obviously with Contreras playing the way that he is right now, like I honestly think that I don't even know. Like you could say that like Yelich is like 5th on the list, and I'd be like, okay, like I could understand that.
I will say this, Andy. I think you're wrong. That's where I'll go. My answer will be different in just a little bit here. But again, he's got to be in the conversation, obviously, whenever you talk about it. But I think that's why it's such a great conversation. Is I saw some people speculating about it on Twitter, and I thought, what a better way to open up the show after a 12-game win streak, no game today. Who is the best player on the Milwaukee Brewers?
That's really fun. I did not know that this was an online conversation.
We did not discuss this. No.
Yeah, I had no idea that this was going to open the show next. So this is just me doing the Mason Crosby show a favor. This is the ratings are spiking already because of the lead in from the Pack-A-Day radio show, and now I'm just handing you the right on a silver platter for you guys to talk about in the next segment. So yeah, I don't even know that I have a strong take on it, but I guess I defaulted to Yelly, and he's having a great season as well. So yeah, he's been fantastic. All right, that's going to do it for me here on the Pack-A-Day radio show. Really, really looking forward to hearing that conversation on the Mason Crosby show now with Mitch Thunder Nellis coming up from 9 to 11. Who is the Brewers' best baseball player? Find out from them. They are much smarter on the topic than me anyway, so that'll be much better to get from them. Huge thank you to Tommy for helping us all throughout the week, and of course, being the superstar that he is all throughout the course of today. Find the Pack-A-Day podcast wherever you get your favorite podcast, 365 days a year. Tomorrow, back with Daria Carragher. Really excited for that conversation. This is the Pack-A-Day radio show. Enjoy your Thursday. And of course, go Pack Go.